not to take more time, I would like to ask Dr. Adamu to start the presentation. Please go ahead, Dr. Adamu, and a short presentation of yourself would be very welcome. Thank you. Dr. Adamu, can you, I'm sorry, Dr. Adamu, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, so I have finished the introduction, so you can go ahead. Please take over. Yeah. Somebody with Samsung is with mic, so please, yeah, thank you so much. Go ahead, Dr. Adamu.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yimtu. I hope you can all hear me well. And I would like to thank everyone for being here on a Friday afternoon, which means you are all interested and this is something close to your hearts. So I would like to appreciate that. I would like to also to thank the organizers of this monthly events. As a College of Health Sciences, the IRB has committed to organize monthly seminars on different areas of interest related to research ethics. So we'll have one in the next month as well. So stay tuned. Other than that, as Dr. Yimtu indicated, I will be presenting on rapid ethical assessment, and then we'll have some time to discuss and reflect on this. And I think you also all know that we'll provide credit points for attending this webinar series, and La'alam maybe later on will tell you more about how to get certificates and how this system works. So with this, allow me to share my screen, and then I will continue from there. Can you all see the screen? Is the screen visible, Dr. Yimtu?
Yes, yes, it is. It is.
Okay, thank you. So as Dr. Yimtu just said, I have been working at the College of Health Sciences now for over 10 years, and have been also engaged in research ethics since then, more or less. And currently I'm together with Yimtu and colleagues, I'm serving the College of Health Sciences as a chairperson. And also we are trying to support other colleges and institutes within Addis Ababa University as well to establish mechanisms for ethics review. So the topic that I'm going to present on is something which I have deliberated on for the last few years. And this has to do with a tool or approach called rapid ethical assessment. Rapid ethical assessment it's an approach actually on which helps researchers to address ethical issues in the respective projects. So I'll come to what rapid ethical assessment and what it is not, and so feel free to pose questions and reflections at the end. Also, you can post your questions in the chat box as well. This work is something which we have worked on together with colleagues in the UK, in the Brighton and Sussex Medical School, and I also would like to acknowledge Wellcome Trust for the kind support provided over the course of the initial phases of this project. I don't have any financial conflict of interest to declare as this juncture. I have said my role within the College of Health Sciences and within the IRB as well as the AAU. And I've told you the support we have gotten from Wellcome Trust and the Brighton and Sussex Medical School. What I'm going to do today will be to take you through what instigated this approach, what was the problem on the ground, and then we'll also tell you a little bit more about the tool and how this is going to be applied. Do you all get this notifications when someone is joining the room, or it's only me?
No, we all hear it. So
you all hear it. Okay, shall we?
Yeah.
Maybe,
at least
maybe
at my end. Yeah.
we can. Yeah, I think it's better to remove that notification. Apologies, so that will not be disturbed. Okay, thank you. So this will be the outline that I will be following. So as an overview, it will be good to a little bit clarify on terminologies. So whenever I have talked about this rapid tool, rapid ethical assessment, I'll define it a little bit later. I often get misunderstood. Some would think this is a rapid way of getting, proposals cleared, but it is not. It's not serving that purpose. It's not a rapid way of reviewing proposals and getting them rushed into the process. It doesn't also mean the rapid doesn't imply substandard, a shortcut mechanism to attain, a certain purpose. That's not the case. And the word actually rather was derived from rapid ethnography. We will be employing a method we borrowed from rapid ethnography. So that's why we are using the term rapid. And in ethnography, rapid ethnography actually would employ a multidisciplinary team of experts with an intense engagement and attain something which would have taken time through a relatively shorter period without compromising the expected standards. So, well, English is not my first language, and maybe the same for most of you. So the term rapid should not be misunderstood likewise. I was presenting this, I like this poster. I was presenting rapid ethical assessment some years back in Belgium. And in that conference, scientific meeting, there was an artist which was trying to depict every scientific presentation in one poster. And by the end of your presentation, you will be given a poster about, your presentation. And this was he's a layperson. I mean, he was not a scientist or a researcher, but was there just to document those. And this was what I received. And as you could see, there is a rocket. I think that was what he understood from the term rapid there. So what is the problem that we are dealing with? Today, I'm going to discuss more into the informed consent process and how the rapid ethical assessment would help in improving what we call the informed consent research and the informed consent process in primarily medical research, but also other types of related research, social science research, and other human subject research, especially in low resource settings. So to do that, it might be good to go back and quickly review what informed consent is. I'm sure most of you are familiar with the term. Informed consent is a process. It's one of the core considerations in human subject research. But this informed consent is often misunderstood as a piece of paper whereby we take consent. Of course, we will have a piece of paper, but informed consent is rather a process. It's a process whereby we provide information for our study participants, and garner understanding, comprehension, and based on that, allow them to exercise their freedom to decide if they want to be part of this research or not. So we have the information part and the decision-making or the consenting part. And in research ethics, what we want to attain is we want to respect what we call the fundamental or the cardinal principles of research ethics. So we have at least 4 principles which are universal and go across all cycles of research process. And any decision about the ethical plausibility of a proposed research project would take into consideration those principles. So the first box up there is the research principles, which are universal, but are applied through national and international guidelines and recommendations. And they will be zoomed down to institutional decisions. The RBs make decisions at institutional levels, but they pay attention to the universal principles and regulations and guidelines internationally and nationally. And the cardinal principles I referred to earlier on are these 4: autonomy of study participants, that should be respected. In informed consent primarily serves that purpose. But also, I believe informed consent is cross-cutting and is not limited to respecting and serving in upholding the principle of respecting person's autonomy. Because in the informed consent process, we also try to make sure that benefits are understood and decisions are also reached based on that understanding, as well as risk is minimized, that's understood, and decisions are also reached based on that information, and fairness in the same manner. And in the informed consent, essential elements in any informed consent document include what's listed in this slide. We have to tell them about the purpose of the research, risks, benefits, as I just mentioned. And also we have to tell them the procedures in the research, the details of the procedures, if there is compensation or not, about confidentiality. And we have to include any issue that would be of interest depending on the type of proposed research for the study participants. And all informed consent documents should mention about voluntariness, that the study participants, if they didn't want, may not join or can withdraw at any point. So what I have said so far is more or less universal. So this is applied in the West or in the East. So this is a universally accepted principle. Now the question is, how much universal are those universal principles? As we know, we have variations across geography, socioeconomic gradients, and all other considerations. So this is the issue then that we might need to look a little bit further into. And coming to the informed consent process, especially, would informed consent be challenged by those contextual variations? Informed consent being a process whereby we impart information, seek understanding and comprehension, and allow the participants to make decisions. But this process can easily be influenced by a number of factors within contexts. So the challenge is this. The challenge is we have universal principles, but specific contexts, and how can we maintain universality within contexts? And some of those challenges could be cultural. for example, science and the concept of research itself can be easily misunderstood. We cannot assume that our study participants, all study participants would know the steps in scientific investigation. Therapeutic misconception is documented. It's a documented problem in textbooks, and also other researchers have documented the same. Our study participants might think that when we are there to do medical research, especially, they think that the study group are there to provide them rather with medical support, and this is called therapeutic misconception. The other challenge is when we ask them to make decisions, the decision according to the principle of autonomy should come from the individual, but they might say, no, I think my family should allow me or give me the green light. So the decision might fall back to community members, family members, community chiefs, and so on. So yeah, how much autonomous is that decision is another dilemma. So understanding the role of those local factors would be really important. And in last month, Dr. Rujda was presenting about ethics dumping. This is especially applied to international partnership, and international partners may have little understanding of what's happening in this part of the world when they design the informed consent, and some informed consent documents are drafted in those settings without taking into consideration the actual situation in the ground, or maybe they don't know it. Actually, I posted one of the papers from a colleague of ours, Dr. Fasil, who did an assessment in the south, where he was trying to do a genetic research on podoconiosis, and he documented a range of factors in that community before finalizing his informed consent process. This is another research from I think Central Africa, and in this document, in this paper, what the researchers have documented is, some decisions were already made by the study participants even before they were asked to make the decisions, and so which means the expectations they had about the project. Some might have already known the project and have heard about it from other members of the community, and they have already made their minds even before they were recruited to take part in the study. And in Butajira also we have documented the same, where study participants, when we randomized actually, those who were excluded from the selection were complaining, and they were disappointed that they were not included in the study. So there could be other factors apart from risk and benefit, we have to pay attention to those. Another paper from West Africa, this talks about how data collection, actually blood specimen collection, was misunderstood by the community, whereby blood was being collected and was exported to Europe for further analysis. And rumors started suddenly in the community, whereby the community members said, these people are collecting blood and they are selling our blood to Europeans. And some even extended the discussion and said, this is actually some sort of belief, and they said maybe there is some sorcery involved, which they associated with the voodoo belief in the setting, and they thought maybe these are white vampires which have come from Europe to suck blood and take them back to where they are. And this actually had a damaging effect on the research project and also subsequent research projects in the setting. And also some of you also might remember what happened recently in the northern part of one part of Ethiopia, where suddenly there was a mob and the researchers were attacked and costed life because of simple a misunderstanding and a rumor that spread quite quickly. We have done a quick assessment in our setting across research centers in the nation, and to document challenges related to the informed consent process. And the most common challenge that were reported by researchers were lack of clarity, inadequate information, issues related with language which was used, including terminology, cultural differences, expectations of the participants, power imbalance, coercion were mentioned as challenges. And the proposed approach, which I'm going to tell you, was taken up, up front by researchers as a way forward in addressing those challenges. So both the quantitative as well as the qualitative assessments we did confirmed the same list of challenges. Some of the suggestions they gave us in that assessment included that researchers should involve or pay attention to community dynamics while designing the consent process, providing training for research team, some differentiated approach so that the consent process would be tailored to the setting. They also mentioned doing some pre-assessment in the ground before embarking into the consent process, the designing as well as the execution. And they also mentioned additional concerns related to ethics should serve, in being a vehicle for promoting ethical research, and the practical challenge should not be hurdle to the research process itself. And when we went to the literature, we identified similar, more or less similar gaps in the literature, which would affect the informed consent process, including communication, the level of information provided, whether the guidelines were addressing those or not, and this will fall back to the standard that we expect from the researchers within the consent form and the consent processes. We had also cultural issues and language also documented as well. The attitude and the level of trust from the study participants, expectations, individual decision-making mechanisms available, all those were confirmed by the literature reviews we had. Can you please mute yourselves when you are not speaking? Thank you. So, yes, this is a summary of the challenge we have. I have just mentioned. Additional challenge would include gender issues, gender dynamics. We have documented in one community as well, whereby some members of the community is arguing that women might not make decisions about their study participation without a prior approval or an affirmation from their husbands. That's gender dynamics. Also, facile in his research, he has been challenged. I mean, in the consent form, he had to translate terms, technical terms like genetics, into a local vernacular, into one of the languages in the South, and there was none which is equivalent to the English terminology. So how do you make those translations when the term doesn't exist in the vernacular? We have done one research also on malaria, and we understood that even in the same language, in one of the most frequently spoken languages in the country, there are different terms when you went to the south, the west, or the east for the same health problem or the same phenomenon. So without knowing those variations, it will be difficult to have, an informed consent or informed information sheet which will be appropriate for that particular group under consideration. And the decision dynamics also, I have talked about that. So the implications of all this would be that, yes, we have universal principles, and those will provide an overall framework and guidance, but will not allow us to tailor, and address those differences. So that gap will be there, and how would we address those gaps will be an important consideration. It's no cultural context to be more specific. So we proposed this tool, the rapid ethical assessment, to fill that gap. So rapid ethical assessment is an approach which helps in tailoring. It can have other benefits we can discuss later on, but it can help researchers to tailor the informed consent process. And we have worked on this tool in Ethiopia and other sub-Saharan countries. So we believe that this can address those issues in other low-income settings as well. And the approach employs ethnographic techniques to address the challenge I just talked about. So the tool will employ brief qualitative interventions designed to map the ethical terrain of research settings prior recruiting study participants, with the purpose of connecting ethical principles to the context and to the realities on the ground. So through this approach, researchers will be able to discover a range of ethical issues, describe them, and also will be able to respond to those issues in the specific settings. So this is a tool which will help researchers to discover, identify, and address issues in the settings. And also this is done by involving key stakeholders. The researchers will identify key stakeholders in that study setting and will be able to conduct an assessment and in an iterative process come up with suggestions of including important points in the development of the informed consent document, as well as the decision making. To give you a little bit of history, this approach, earlier on, I took this research from Susie Bull, which you can see on the left side, when she was, she took more or less similar approach when she was doing her PhD in the UK under the supervision of Bobby Farsides, Professor Farsides on the right side, who later on happened to be my PhD promoter as well. So what Susie documented was the challenge. Actually, she documented the same challenge which I talked about earlier on, and she experimented on it a little bit in the Gambia on one project on tuberculosis. What I did later on was, in follow-up with what Fasil has worked on lately, whereby Fasil also tried to employ this approach in southern Ethiopia on a genetic research on podoconiosis. So based on what they have documented, my role was to see if we can mainstream this approach in the ethics governance system and provide this approach to researchers, who are novice to this approach, and provide some maybe little guidance and let them be able to improve the informed consent process. And we tried to scale up the approach, and we experimented on, we approached researchers, PhD and postdoctoral researchers, and I brought the tool with some upgrade, the tool to those researchers, and we tried to document the usability, its feasibility, and then form guidance for researchers. So that was what we tried to do until by 6-7 years ago. So we piloted the tool in different research projects, documented the usability and feasibility of this approach, and we documented those. So we had 3 phases, and we tried to attain those objectives. So in the pilot, we employed this approach, the RA approach, across about 5 sites in different parts of the country, and also in a range of research projects as well. We documented that it is feasible, it is useful, and the researchers were happy to take it up, and we were happy also to develop a brief guideline on how to employ the rapid ethical assessment. This table shows you the steps researchers would take to employ the rapid ethical assessment. So the first step will be to decide if RA is important for that particular research. It's not a blanket recommendation. I'm not saying all researchers should have RAA for their particular research. And we have come up with some recommendations. And so the researchers would go through those recommendations and check if the research project fall into that category. Once they are convinced that they would benefit from RA, for example, if it is a novice type of approach, or if they are going to a novice setting where they don't know anything about the dynamics in that community, that could be one criteria. If there have been ethical issues which are not clearly discussed elsewhere, and if the researchers were not sure if they can fairly address them, this could be one consideration. As I told you, for example, Fasil was trying to do a genetic research in a new setting, whereby he was not sure how he will communicate the subject matter to that group. Other researchers have done RA in a setting where very sensitive subject was to be discussed, and they were not sure how this communication would go. Other researchers have done RA when they were conducting research in a relatively vulnerable group. So these are some examples. Once you have decided, then you need to plan for it. And when you plan for it, it includes establishment of a multidisciplinary team of about on average 4 to 5 individuals, including the researcher, and they plan for a series of events, starting from identifying the issues, but also doing a pre-assessment and what tools to employ to go to the community and do a field assessment. And the field assessment can be done in about, we have done it in about 4 weeks in some research, and so we say can take about 4 to 6 weeks. And so in the field, the research team, that group of 4 to 5, would conduct assessments through interviews, observations, and focused discussions among stakeholders. And would also in the field would do continuous debriefing and come up with codes of issues and themes, and also practical recommendations on how those issues would be addressed in the informed consent process. So based on that, the consent process, including the information sheet, as well as how decision would be garnered from the participants, will be finalized. So that's the step. This is some pictures from the field when we were doing the pilots this is, I think, in Zwai. This is in the west in Wallaka. We have also conducted in the north Tigray. We have been to we have been to Harar and so on. So we have been to central, east, north, west, and east. So the analysis, as I've said, includes both field analysis, which is very important for immediate recommendation. But later on, we have also done advanced analysis through in vivo and double coding and so on, and have published our findings. This is the field team debriefing on some of the thematic areas. This is also to give you some of the issues we identified in other research projects. I just can highlight issues like in one research project, whereby researchers were planning to ask about number of children. And suddenly we discovered that asking about how many children one has is offensive. You don't ask those, it's like a taboo. So the research team were provided with feedback on how to think about it. Terminologies, I have told you about that. We have seen cancer or malaria being having different interpretations or terminologies used in different settings in the same country, even in the same language. Also, we often heard about signature being participant being very anxious about signing on informed consent sheets. So whenever allowable, it's for some of the studies, verbal consent was recommended based on those findings. So the utility of employing RA was, as mentioned earlier on, was we were able to revise the content, rather upgrade the content to be tailored to that setting, the language, additional explanations provided as needed. In the genetic study in the south, even though there was not equivalent term for genetics, but it was also possible to explore, equivalent explanations, about familial tendencies and so on in that culture, and that explanation was included in the information document for the consent. And the other element was the decision part, which I just mentioned about one being the signature aspect. These are the papers that we published from the data we had, and some publications are also in progress. And as mentioned earlier on, other researchers have also adopted the same and employed them. Henok worked on another genetic research on the nerves and did RA. Also, other researchers in West Africa, Cameroon also employed the same. We are currently in discussion with a team in Kigali to employ this, and I think some of colleagues from Kigali are in the webinar. Also, we have also tried to do additional projects expanding from this core work on NTD, on cancer, on mental health as well, and I just mentioned a current work in progress in Kigali. These are, I have already mentioned about what we did with TDR, with the American Cancer Society, the NeuroGap Stanley Center for the MGAP, NGAP. We still have to publish some of the data we had. We had also discussion with the Mycetoma Center in Khartoum, which was not able, which we didn't happen as planned, but it still is open. So, I mean, now the question is how can we apply this? And we can also discuss further about it. We have published some documents, and we might also synthesize. Recently, I have been discussing with my promoter from my days in the UK. So we have indications. The types of research will be important. So you might decide accordingly. So sensitivity, vulnerability, the type of intervention, and so on could be some examples. Other than that, we are also happy to support, as we are currently doing for colleagues in Kigali, if we are contacted. Whenever I'm presenting, always I get additional insight, and so this approach could be used for other considerations, like in new medical interventions and other types of implementation research other than medical as well. So feel free to jump in and comment. What are the challenges related to this approach? I mean, this is a multidisciplinary work, and it requires the researcher to set aside some additional time, about 4 to 6 weeks on average, so that we should factor for that, and also not getting the guidance required. I mean, would be some challenge, but there is a solution available for all. So this approach, I mean, can be used for, I mean, so as far as I'm considered, I have been presenting this and trying to defend how this can be used in HIV/AIDS research. So apologies, that was the reason why we have HIV/AIDS still there. But it can be used for, as far as the indications are justified, for a number of research projects in low resource settings, depending on the nature of the study, the dynamics that we anticipate, as I've said earlier on. And I would like to challenge you, those of you who are currently planning intensive studies, PhD studies, postdoctoral, to challenge you to see if RA could be useful for you, and let us all know what you think. Just posing back the steps as a reminder, and I would like to conclude here, and we can open the floor for discussions and feedback. Thank you very much. Back to Dr. Yimtu.
Thank you, Dr. Adamu. That was really an excellent presentation. I think, as I mentioned at the beginning, as I said, he has been working a lot on this one, starting from his PhD and now continuing the same path. And any questions, and like he said, any collaborations further will be very welcome. So I have seen, because we don't have much time, I'm going to jump into the questions that the people are posting already. Maybe we start with what they wrote on the chat box. Would you like that? Or yeah, others can also raise their hands. But from what I have collected from the chat box, I think, Jugu, I'm going to call your names as I see them on the, on your, so Jugu has written several questions. So I think maybe some of them have been answered on the way during the discussion, but some of the questions was rapid ethical assessment versus fast track review versus accelerated review. I think maybe he can explain further, or I think it's clear just to show the difference between those. One is a suggestion which he mentioned about the IRB presenting the current national ethical guideline as one of the webinar topics. This will be taken up as a suggestion. And then a third question that he asked is, do you mean the researcher has to do a RIA before submitting for IRB? So that's a question from Jugu.
Yes. Okay.
You can start, but yeah, that's better.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Yimtu. And thank you, Jugu, for your questions and the suggestions. I think the suggestions are very well taken. I think all others are welcome to suggest webinar topics. So for the new national guideline, I think we can maybe collaborate with the National Ethics Committee to organize one session. So we'll take it up. We'll discuss with Dr. Yimtu and others about the question whether we need to do ethical approval before or after. So what we have done for the research projects, so depending on the stage where they are, we have followed different approaches. So for those projects which were already approved, they had ethical approval, and when they wanted to integrate REA, they applied for amendment. We need to have ethical approval because it's a collection and there is a process involved. So you can apply for amendment. For those researchers who haven't yet gotten ethical approval, they included RA in the plan, and then they got ethical approval together with the main body of research. And then the other question which can follow was, we said you would improve the informed consent process, right? So you might even improve the content and even the decision making mechanism afterwards. If that was dictated by the RA, then those changes also need to be amended afterwards by the ethics committee. So this could be also, maybe I didn't mention in the challenge, but doing those changes and amendments in the time it takes also, depending on the ethics committee, would be something to pay attention to. But amendments usually, in a way of improving the ethics process, including the informed consent process, are very much welcomed by the IRB. So hopefully shouldn't take much time. It's usually automatic in our setup. Of course, should be reviewed and should be approved by the ethics committee. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. I think the next question is from Kasaun, who wrote, is it mandatory to get RIA from IRB? I think for IRB, for doing research about physical environment other than human subject research. Is RIA mandatory for all field of studies and disciplines?
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Kasaun. It is not mandatory. So I think what we were saying was, this is an additional tool to help us tailor the consent process to the setting. So for any type of research, we're not saying it is mandatory, but it's recommended rather. So that's what I would say. And the researcher would have to look into the anticipated issues and the dynamics, anticipated dynamics in the community, as I was giving some examples. So that would be important. I believe all research projects would benefit from this exercise, but for some research projects, maybe it's obvious. You know what you need to include. The language issue may not be that of a challenge from the outset. Generally, I believe in principle all would benefit out of, but some would benefit more than others. And since there is resource implication time-wise, as well as some financial as well, it's good to, I think, prioritize. That's what I would say.
Okay, so now I'll give a chance to somebody who has raised the hand, and then I'll come back to, there are other questions in the chat box, but there is, I don't know, then it just says unknown 821, I don't know. There's no name, but you have raised your hand, so go ahead, please. There is no name on it, it's just UA, unknown, so.
Okay, thank you for the presentation and having a chance for the training. My question is, how is the socioeconomic status of the community or the country can affect the implementation of the fundamental principles of ethics, as Dr. Adamu mentioned priorly? This is my question.
Yeah, thank you. We didn't get your name. Would have been good to know who you are and from which institute, if possible.
Getachew, a student in Addissie University.
Thank you, Getachew. Yeah, that is a very good question. I mean, the ethics principle shouldn't be compromised in any setting, and socioeconomic status shouldn't be an excuse for not maintaining the bar to start with. So that's why, I mean, of course, there are differences, and the one factor would be the level of understanding we have for research. So there are obvious differences between the North and the West, developed countries and developing countries. So that can be a challenge for the dynamics the researchers will have with the community, and the community could be easily manipulated in one way or the other. So we have to train our researchers on professionalism, responsible conduct, and so on. That's really important. Also, engaging the community will be important. Community engagement is maybe one other topic we can think of for our webinars. When we engage the community, we have to empower them at the same time. They cannot be taken for granted. And that is also another approach. So to say, I mean, the rapid ethical assessment would help in filling that gap. And that's why we said this will primarily be useful for such settings, low resource settings. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Adamu. And I see another one, Zaleka, please explain. You can go ahead with your question and then where you come from, starting with where you come from. Zaleka, can you hear me? Okay, I don't see he's not responding. Just to ask to read one of the questions from the chat box, and I'll come back to the one raised, another person who has raised his hand. But there's one question from an iPhone which says, could you please explain what tailored informed consent is? I think you mentioned it during the presentation. Yeah.
Yeah. Tailoring. Yeah. Normally, tailoring is like when you want to have a clothes, right? You want it to be tailored to your size, isn't it? ልብስ ሰፊ የሚባለው ማለት ነው በአማርኛ በድሮ ጊዜ ልጆች እያለን ወላጆቻችን ልብሰው ሄድ ሄደው ተለክተን ምናምን so the tailor will tailor your coat or your trouser to your size. So it shouldn't be one size fitting for all. That is maybe the literal meaning of tailoring. So tailoring the informed consent would be to tailor it to the group of individuals we are targeting. I think I said earlier on, some consent forms are already produced or written by a researcher in the north, in the UK. They are sitting in their labs, and they will send you a form from there. And as per the universal guidelines, they are okay. They fulfill the criteria. But when you take them to the ground, are they appropriate to that person in the community? Yeah. So tailoring that's what it means by tailoring. So that was the question.
Sorry, Dr. Melaku, can you mute your?
Yeah. So that is the meaning of tailoring.
Okay. So thank you. There's another hand
for writing the meaning.
Yeah. I think I'll give Jugu the second to open and ask his questions this time. But first of all, I'd like to call upon Gangali. I'm sorry if I pronounce your name. Gangali. So go ahead, please.
Yeah, thank you so much. This is Pierre Ngangari from Rwanda. I first thank Dr. Adamu for a nice presentation. As someone who is going to do the same lipid supplesso, as I will be doing my genetics study on podoconiosis. My question, actually, one has been answered. It was about if you are to ask for ethical approval when you are doing lapidatic supplesso. The second one, the one I want Dr. Adamu to highlight on is about when you are planning lapidatic supplesso, is it necessary to administer the lapidatic supplesso tool to people like institution, research team? What if the study participants have some knowledge and skills that may be allowing them to understand and fill that questionnaire? I saw in the presentation that the group discussion, some of the model that is adopted to research personnel you are dealing with. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Gangadi. Thank you for joining us today. I'm so happy. And as I was mentioning, I'm very much willing to support your team in Kigali for the RA. So, for the question you asked, so we are not giving any blanket recommendation. And if we think the study, the target group is adequately empowered, and from the outset, if the issues are clear, and so on, and if we think there is no point employing RA, that's okay. But so one should go through the list of criteria and justify for oneself what they expect from the RA. So that's the first step. Once we have decided that, when we establish a team, the team will decide on whom to talk to and which focus group discussions to conduct. So usually we'll start from, for example, if we have a community X, so we might start from someone who's knowledgeable about that community. So it could be an insider or outsider, and we'll include them in the team and continue exploring about the team. So this is an ethnographic approach. Maybe we'll take some time. Actually, we have already discussed about that. So we'll discuss and develop the steps together. So the team will develop the steps and whom to talk to and which groups to form. And this is something which will evolve in a matter of about 4 weeks. So if someone was already knowledgeable, as you said, knowledgeable about that community and the dynamics, it's good to include them as key informants. Yeah.
Thank
Thank
you.
you.
We are out of time, but if it's okay,
Yeah.
we could go for 2 questions or 3.
Couple of minutes.
Very short ones. Yeah, like I will give a chance for Jigu. He has written it, but it might be better if we hear it from him, if it's possible. If not, I can read it out again. Jigu, can you unmute and tell us the question? If Jigu, maybe he's not able to unmute or okay, he said, please read it. I think the question is, how do we practically engage the community in research process? And then I missed it a little, yeah.
Is a challenge for ethical review by IRB.
Yeah.
Even to evaluate.
Yes. It is a challenge for ethical review by IRB to even to evaluate.
Yeah. Okay. I think this is a very broad concept. Community engagement is a very broad concept, so it will be unfair to discuss it in a few minutes. So what I suggest maybe Dr. Yimtu is if we can also organize another seminar or webinar on the topic of community engagement and how it helps in addressing critical issues. But other than that, there are tools on how you might include them in the discussion. One is what we call community advisories. So you can have community advisories whom you will continuously contact the research team. This is common in clinical trials, for example. That's one. Other than that, for the point you raised related to ethics review, as per international guidelines, every IRB should have a community representative. We were actually this morning recruiting one community representative for our own IRB. And as per the guidelines, the community representative is the most important person in the IRB actually, and Yimtu can confirm that. Even if we have the quorum, if the community representative didn't show up, the meeting will not run. So they will reflect the perspectives of the community as laypersons. They will read the consent form, the language of the consent, and if there are any issues from cultural dynamics and so on, they will be able to raise that. So these are non-scientists, non-medical, non-researcher, laypersons in the community, and we have 2 in our IRB, one male and female. Yeah, so maybe a brief reaction. Thank you.
Thank you. So we will include this also for this year. We had community engagement last year, IRB seminar, but we can include it for this year. Another 2 short questions. One is from Tamirat. Did CHS IRB start RIA? I guess it's saying the requirement for RIA. And the second one is from Dagmawit. She wants to know about pretest and RIA. I think what's the difference between pretest and RIA?
Okay. Thank you. Maybe to start from Dagmawit, I mean, in any research, pretest is usually to test the tool. So it is related to the questionnaire. If there are issues between the data collectors and in the dynamics of communication, was the tool understandable, and so on. And based on that pretest, you will improve the tool. So this is more to do with the ethical issues. So basically, that's the difference. And then in a pretest, usually we'll administer the tool and then I document the challenge. But in RA, you actually will employ additional methodologies like interviews, focus group discussion. So you employ ethnographic approach. So it has a methodology of itself. So that is the basic difference. But other than that, we haven't included RA as, within the SOPs. We haven't done that, but we have, in the national guidelines, there is a mention of RA as one of the examples whereby informed consent can be tailored to settings. So there is a mention, but not prescribing, not with prescription. So that's why we are now trying to promote the approach across different platforms, nationally and internationally. And over time, we might reach to that stage. But at the moment, we are still documenting the approach and developing guidelines. And hopefully, we'll do those. We'll do that rather in due course. Thank you.
So thank you so much, Dr. Adamu, again, for doing this work, which I believe is very challenging. The challenge with the implementation of the consent process, because it's beyond a good, well-written consent form, beyond the document. But the most challenging part is the implementation part. So thank you for your work on this, and thank you for a very organized. I saw people are writing, thanking you for a very organized presentation. I know that we could take longer time for discussion, but I think we can find Dr. Adamu very easily for further discussion. Sarah also suggested another topic for us for the seminar, public health research. So we have, at least on this seminar, we have identified 3 more topics, because as was mentioned at the beginning, we have these monthly seminars every month. So you are very welcome also to write directly to our secretariat to say, we want this, for a seminar presentation. So thank you, everyone. It has been a wonderful afternoon. Thank you for attending this seminar. And again, thank you so much to Dr. Adamu in the Secretariat of the IRB for having this good organization of the seminar. So have a good day. Have a good weekend.
Thank you, Yimtu. Thank you, everyone. The presentation and the recording will be shared, maybe just to reassure some of them.
People were asking about it. And there is also a question of certificate, because this has been, it will have, there will be. Thank you.
Yes. Okay.
So
Thank you.
Have a nice weekend, everyone. Bye.
Ciao. Thank you. Bye. Take care.
Bye. Bye.
Thank you.
ምኑ ነው የገባው ፔጅ 2